tell us, Vivek, what happened with DOGE?
Yeah,
well, congratulations on the job.
Thank you, man.
Well,
I
you don't have
appreciate
it anymore.
Yeah, it's not my job right now.
Oh, okay.
I'm running
sorry.
for.
I take that back then.
I'm
So
moving
what
on to my
happened?
next
Did you get pushed
next
out?
frontier.
Did you get fired? Like what?
No,
did you leave?
it was a slightly different vision.
I hear you, Vivek.
Yeah,
I don't believe you.
Oh, that's fair
But I
enough.
think
Yeah.
I think you either got pushed out or you know that it's going to implode. I think that you know Elon is going to crash and burn it, and you're a smart guy, and you said, you know what? Let me get out of Dodge and go do my Governor of Ohio thing.
On a recent installment of The Breakfast Club, Charlamagne told Vivek Ramaswamy straight to his face that he does not believe for a second that Ramaswamy wasn't pushed out of DOGE. And I gotta say, I agree with him on that. Now, we'll get to the reporting on Ramaswamy's exit in just a moment. But first, let's hear Ramaswamy explain in his own words why he left DOGE.
It was a slightly different vision from where we started to where we landed. And it's not that it's, one's right or wrong, but if you take a look at where we began, right? DOGE is gonna be an outside body to the government. One of my core areas of focus throughout has been the constitutional and legal basis for shutting down the bureaucracy and the federal government and downsizing it. That's what I focused, written my books on, et cetera. It evolved in more of a direction of a technology project, using a technology first approach. And so Elon and I were on good terms. We have good personal relationship, slightly different approaches to the project. And what he and I both concluded, and I think this is right, is given my focus on law, on legislation, the right way to realize my vision is through elected office. And so that's what I'm gonna be pursuing. We have an announcement probably coming up in the next month, but that's my next path.
The Governor of Ohio, we heard about that.
That's coming up soon. But that was where we all landed.
I really do think that he got pushed out. Like, I really do, for a few different reasons. I think that Ramaswamy's personality and Elon Musk's personality, there's gonna be tension. Okay, we're talking about two very opinionated, very vocal, A-type individuals. There was already some reporting indicating that Elon Musk was getting annoyed with Ramaswamy and wanted to kind of like push him out. But look, Ramaswamy could also be telling the truth. So we'll note that reporting from both Politico and the New York Times indicates that Ramaswamy wore out his welcome with MAGA and with Team Trump. And we'll start with the Politico report, which reads in part, Musk made it known that he wanted Ramaswamy out of DOGE in recent days, according to 3 people familiar with Musk's preferences who were granted anonymity to discuss them. An ill-received holiday rant on X by Ramaswamy about H-1B visas apparently hastened his demise. And for those who missed that story, the H-1B visa debate had to do with essentially raising the cap or the number of skilled visa or skilled workers visas that would be allowed. So Silicon Valley wants to increase the number of foreign workers who are high skilled because Silicon Valley wants to save on labor, let's keep it real. And so bringing in foreign workers would help them do that. Vivek Ramaswamy is in favor of increasing the cap for H-1B visas, but MAGA, meaning the voters, are not in favor of that overwhelmingly. And so there was this big, all-out fight on X as a result of the differing opinions on that. And according to the Politico report, though, Ramaswamy was on thin ice even before that rant. A source familiar with Ramaswamy's exit told Politico they wanted him out before the tweet, but kicked him to the curb when that came out. And a Republican strategist close to Trump advisors said Ramaswamy just burned through the bridges and he finally burned Elon. Everyone wants him out of Mar-a-Lago, out of DC. A report by the New York Times reads, Ramaswamy's role in the incoming administration had appeared tenuous to some in Trump's circle. There have been repeated complaints about Ramaswamy from people close to Trump and at times from Trump himself. And specifically, sources close to Trump stated that the president was upset with Ramaswamy's comments in the middle of that H-1B visa debate. So Trump was not happy to be dragged into a high-profile fight, and people close to him were unhappy having to expend capital with allies on the issue. But unlike Musk, who has supported Trump to the tune of several $100 million in donations, Ramaswamy is seen as a less essential presence in Trump's new orbit. Oof, cold-blooded, but money talks. Or as Papa Kasparian says, the cash is talking. So what do you think, Waz? I mean, I'm starting to get less interested in this, I think, ouster, but I still think it's an ouster. I think he was ousted from the Trump circle, but what do you think?
There's no doubt that he was ousted. First of all, this guy was a tweeting maniac up until and through his Zach Morris rant. And then, that happens and he goes basically radio silent. Like, obviously people got a hold of him and was like, bruh, what you did that day was a killer. Like, it's a freaking career ender, dude. This guy went up on the internet, which is forever, and said that we need to make America Indian again. We need white American culture is the problem. Yeah. And the fact that you guys haven't been tiger mommed into being the perfect little engineers is why we can't be like, it's insane what this guy said.
It is. Let me actually read it to everyone because I just found it so insulting toward American workers. So he said, and this is what got him in trouble, our American culture has venerated mediocrity over excellence for way too long, at least since the 90s and likely longer. That doesn't start in college, it starts young. A culture that celebrates the prom queen over the math Olympiad champ or the jock over the valedictorian will not produce the best engineers. So in other words, telling Americans, your culture is all wrong, you're lazy, and we have no choice but to bring in foreign workers because otherwise nothing would get done. That's a terrible message to the American people and especially to Trump supporters who, a huge portion of them supported Trump from the very beginning when he put out like an anti-immigration message. And I don't think that they're in favor of like high-skilled immigrants coming in and taking jobs from, Americans who could be serving in those roles, right? These are Americans who, by the way, had to go to college, in most cases, take out a lot of debt in order to go to college, get that education to be considered qualified for these engineering roles. And for them to be undercut with H-1B visas is unacceptable. So I actually agree with them on this matter and disagree with Vivek Ramaswamy. But sorry to cut in, I just wanted to give the audience the exact wording of his Twitter thread.
Yeah, it was just so insanely tone deaf, out of pocket, and completely out of step with the entire, like, if Trump's brand is one thing, it's that white America is amazing and that we have not acknowledged this amazingness enough recently. And Vivek is saying like, no, you guys aren't good enough. You guys aren't Chinese enough. You guys aren't Indian enough. You guys aren't West African enough. Like, that is just an insane message to send. And it's a political non-starter. And so they banished his ass. And it's like, all right, man, go take your chances trying to win the governorship in Ohio where, Republicans are ascending. It seems like they kick the Democrats' asses by more and more by the freaking election. And so it's like, yeah, go do your thing over there and get the hell out of here. And I thought it was funny that he went up there and said, my concentration was like the Constitution and knowing the law.
Right.
Those guys are going in a different direction, meaning like these guys aren't trying to like actually do this in a way that would make any actual sense vis-a-vis the American Constitution. And so I don't fit in with what they want to do anymore.
Yeah.
I thought that was kind of hilarious.
Well, that's who Ramaswamy is, right? Like these little weaselly jabs. Like I caught that too. That was his weaselly way of taking jabs while, for those who aren't paying close attention, giving the optics of someone who isn't taking jabs.
But make no mistake, he's politically done.
You think so?
There's no way this guy can curry favor and trust with Republican voters when, because it wasn't one tweet. It was a whole diatribe. Like this guy had a beginning, middle, and end to why white American workers are horrible. Like you can't overcome that. So I think he's kind of done. If he had any juice, I think they would have ran him for JD's seat, right? And been like, all right, cool. We need to keep the Senate in Ohio to keep, that Republican majority going. Perhaps he runs against somebody like Sherrod Brown, who just lost. And I think Sherrod Brown, I would have loved to see that Senate race of Sherrod Brown, who's been over there for a minute in the Senate out of Ohio for a minute. But again, the horrible brand recognition of the Dems all over the country, particularly in places like Ohio. And the ascendancy of the Republicans over there, he got beat, but just barely, right? And so him going back again and trying to get JD Vance's old seat against a Vivek, I think he would have wiped the floor with that dude. And I think the GOP kind of knew that. So they're like, yo, go do something with the governorship. Hopefully it happens, even if it doesn't matter. Trump still gets to keep his majority in the Senate. And yeah, he's absolutely been banished, and none of his slick talking. And he does have a slick talking way about him. Like, he is really, a deft sort of scam artist, right? And that was kind of the best thing too about his little rant, is that this guy's not an engineer. He's not some quant, I know that he's from quote unquote Silicon Valley. So people identify him with, these sort of engineer types. He's not that, dude.
Yeah.
He's a guy that raised a bunch of money on a drug that people already knew wasn't working. And he scammed a bunch of people out of a bunch of money. And that's how he got rich. And he's obviously good at talking circles around people, but yeah, I think his political utility is completely cooked.
Well, let's give him one more shot to see if he can persuade MAGA after the reaction that they had to his Twitter thread calling them lazy. So Charlamagne asked what Ramaswamy thought about the reaction, especially from the right, to his post. Let's hear what he had to say.
I would rather speak hard truth and take the chance of losing an election than to somehow win by just saying what you're supposed to say. Now, my view on this is America is an excellent country. I mean, America is defined by the pursuit of excellence. I think America is defined foremost based on the set of ideals that bind all of us together despite our different genetics. That's what makes America special. And one of those ideals is the pursuit of excellence. The idea that you are able to achieve whatever you want without any government or bureaucracy standing in your way. I don't think it should be a bad thing in America to be a striver, right? That word has a negative connotation to it a little bit today. Our founding fathers were strivers. Our culture was built by strivers, right? Neil Armstrong and John Glenn, the people from my home state, went to outer space at the frontier. Did I know the message that I was delivering was going to make some people upset? I did. I'm against any kind of victimhood. Most of the time for the last 4 years, if I'm being honest, I think the dominant strain of victimhood has been a left-wing victimhood. But I wrote a book called Nation of Victims a few years ago that had a chapter called Conservative Victimhood.
Nah, he's done. He's done. I had not seen that. Victimhood? Okay, look. No, that's gonna set my ass off. Are you kidding me right now? Victimhood? So explain to me how American workers, okay, we're talking about engineers, high-skilled workers who took their asses to four-year institutions, took out a ton of debt in order to get that degree so they qualify for these jobs. Explain to me how it's victimhood to call out the unfairness of this system when Silicon Valley CEOs would rather import foreign workers, undercutting American workers in order to save money on labor, because that's what's happening. How is it victimhood to call that out? Man, he is. You know what? I commend MAGA for pushing him out. I do. And here's the other thing about Vivek Ramaswamy. He's always rubbed me the wrong way, and I couldn't quite figure out what it was about him. And it's the inauthentic nature of everything that comes out of his mouth. He's so insincere, he's so inauthentic, it's so gross. So you know what? I bask in the fact that he has been pushed out of MAGA. And like the idea that he's running for a governor position. Good luck to you. We'll see how that works out. Any final words on this, Waz?
Like a lot of this stuff, Anna, it is a projection. He's projecting his own victimhood of hot white chicks back when he was in college and high school, who didn't want to have sex with him. The hot sorority chicks wanted nothing to do with him. Yeah, Mimi's a psychopath, y'all, just in case you weren't sure at home. He's still pissed off that he would go to the mall and eat ice cream at the food court by himself. And none of the hot white chicks wanted to hold his hand. And he just knew it's because he was an Indian dork.
No.
And so he would have liked for there to be, a sort of social pecking order where this, Indian kid who was on his way to Harvard was looked at as more desirable than the quarterback, than the linebacker, than the different various jocks, the pitcher, the first baseman, what have you. And that's what he's still crying about. That's what that entire diatribe was about, man. Like, this dude felt like he should be getting laid by the hottest white women in his orbit, and it never clearly happened for him. And he's still not over it. And he's like, these freaking white people, they're giving it up to the wrong people.
They're
It's
lazy.
people like me who should be getting it, not them. And that's why he's not backing down. This is a deeply held belief. He's scarred from that experience.
Maybe the world would be a better place if men got laid more. I don't know, but he's wrong.
I guarantee you it would. I
my God.
guarantee you.
Well, that devolved quickly, but yeah. Vivek's ridiculous, and American workers are sick of this crap. And so that's where the rage comes
100%.
from, period.